Millionaire arrives home early, finds stepmother kicking his daughter. What he does shocks all. If the title touched your heart, just imagine what's coming next. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us where you're watching from. The grandfather clock in the marble foyer chimed 2:30 as Marcus Thompson's Bentley crunched up the circular driveway of his Malibu estate. He wasn't supposed to be home for another 3 hours, but the board meeting had ended early. Something about coming home unexpectedly always filled him with a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. Perhaps it was the executive's instinct that had made him a billionaire by 40. As he approached the massive oak front doors, a sound stopped him cold. A child's cry. Not just any cry, the desperate, heartbroken wail of his 6-year-old daughter Aria. Marcus's blood turned to ice as he heard another sound that made his stomach lurch. Harsh, cruel words being shouted. "You stupid, clumsy little burden. Look what you've done to my Persian rug. You're nothing but a mistake, just like your pathetic mother was." Victoria's voice cut through the air like a whip, harsh and unforgiving. Marcus's hand froze on the door handle. Aria's voice was high and desperate, the words tumbling out between sobs. "Please, Mummy Victoria, I'm sorry. I was trying to reach my water cup, but my crutches slipped and I spilled it. I didn't mean to." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His deceased wife, Sarah, had been the love of his life, and Aria was her precious gift to him. He'd married Victoria 2 years ago, believing she would be the loving mother figure Aria desperately needed after losing Sarah to cancer when she was just 4. Another heartbroken cry from Aria made him move. Marcus burst through the front door and froze at the sight before him. In the center of their opulent living room, his beautiful daughter sat crumpled on the floor beside an overturned water cup, her tiny body shaking with sobs. Her special pink crutches, the ones decorated with butterfly stickers that she loved so much, lay scattered beside her. Victoria stood over her with her arms crossed, her face twisted with disgust. "Victoria!" Marcus's voice boomed through the room with such force that crystal glasses trembled on the mahogany bar. "What the hell is going on here?" Victoria spun around, her face a mask of surprise and something else, fear. For a split second, Marcus saw something in her eyes that chilled him more than Aria's cries. It wasn't just anger or frustration, it was something deeper, darker, something that looked almost like hatred. "Marcus, you're home early," Victoria said, her voice immediately shifting to its usual honeyed tone. She smoothed her blonde hair and adjusted her designer dress as if nothing had happened. "Aria had a little accident with her water. I was just trying to teach her to be more careful with expensive things." Marcus looked down at his daughter. Aria's golden hair hung in tangles around her face, and her big blue eyes, so much like her mother's, were wide with hurt and confusion. Her cheeks were red and blotchy from crying, but what broke Marcus's heart most was the look of defeated acceptance in her eyes, as if this wasn't the first time she'd been treated this way. "Daddy," Aria whispered, reaching out to him with trembling arms. "I was trying to get my water because I was thirsty, but when I leaned on my crutches wrong, everything fell. I said sorry so many times, but—" Marcus knelt beside his daughter, his heart breaking at the sight of her tear-stained face. As he gently gathered her into his arms, he noticed something that made his blood boil. Aria flinched slightly when he touched her arm, and he could see faded marks on her wrists, not bruises, but red marks, like someone had grabbed her too tightly. "How long has this been going on?" Marcus asked, his voice deadly quiet as he stood with Aria in his arms. Victoria's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. "I don't know what you're implying, Marcus. Children with disabilities require firm guidance. Aria needs to learn that the world won't accommodate her limitations forever." The way she said limitations made Marcus's jaw clench. Aria had been born with a rare condition affecting her leg muscles, requiring her to use crutches, but she was one of the brightest, most spirited children he'd ever known. The doctor said her mind was exceptional. She was already reading at a fourth-grade level and could solve math problems that amazed her tutors. "Daddy," Arya whispered against his shoulder, "I'm scared of making her mad again." Those words changed everything. Marcus looked at Victoria with new eyes, seeing past the beautiful facade to something cold and calculated beneath. How many times had he come home to find Arya unusually quiet or withdrawn? How many times had Victoria explained Arya's tears as tantrums or attention-seeking behavior? "Pack your bags, Victoria," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the tense silence like a blade. "You have 1 hour." Victoria's mask slipped completely. "You can't be serious. Over this little drama queen's theatrics? Marcus, she's manipulating you. Can't you see that? She spills things on purpose to get attention." But Marcus was already walking toward the stairs, carrying Arya to safety. As he climbed, he heard Victoria's voice rising behind him, no longer sweet but sharp with desperation. "You'll regret this, Marcus Thompson. You have no idea what you're throwing away. That child will ruin your life just like her mother tried to." There was something in her tone that promised this wasn't over. Something that suggested Victoria had secrets of her own, secrets that might be more dangerous than Marcus could imagine. As he reached the top of the stairs, Arya looked up at him with those impossibly wise eyes. "Daddy, why does Mommy Victoria say such mean things to me? Did I really break her because I need crutches?" Marcus's heart shattered into a million pieces, but he knew this was just the beginning. Whatever Victoria's reasons for her cruelty, whatever secrets she was hiding, he would uncover them all. No one would ever make his daughter feel worthless again. But as Victoria's bitter laughter echoed from downstairs, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that getting rid of her wouldn't be as simple as packing her bags. Some storms, once unleashed, could destroy everything in their path. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in his study with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in hushed tones with his security chief, while Arya slept fitfully in her room down the hall. The emotional wounds his daughter had endured told a story he wished he'd seen sooner, a pattern of psychological manipulation that made him sick to his stomach. "I want a complete background check on Victoria Hastings," Marcus told James Morrison, his head of security. "Everything from her childhood to yesterday. I don't care what it costs." "Sir, I ran a basic check when you got engaged 2 years ago. She came up clean. Wealthy family from Connecticut, deceased parents, trust fund baby. Run it again." Deeper this time. Marcus rubbed his temples, where a headache was building. "And James? I want to know everything about the night my wife Sarah died. Victoria was there that night as Sarah's supposed best friend, comforting her in her final hours." The silence on the other end of the line stretched long enough to make Marcus's chest tighten. "Sir, is there something specific you're looking for?" Marcus thought about Victoria's words from earlier. "You have no idea what you're throwing away." There had been something almost triumphant in her voice, as if she held cards he didn't know existed. "Just find everything, James. Something doesn't add up about how Victoria came into our lives." After hanging up, Marcus made his way to Arya's room. She was awake, staring at the ceiling with those thoughtful eyes that reminded him so much of Sarah. Her room was a princess paradise. Soft pink walls covered with butterflies, a canopy bed fit for royalty, and shelves lined with books far above her supposed reading level. "Can't sleep, Angel?" Arya turned toward him, and Marcus's heart clenched at the sight of her still red eyes from earlier crying. "Daddy, I need to tell you something important, but you have to promise not to be disappointed in me." Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, taking her small hand in his much larger one. "I could never be disappointed in you, sweetheart. What is it? I've been keeping secrets from you." After Mommy Sarah died, I started paying attention to grown-up conversations because I was scared someone else might go away. Arya's voice was barely above a whisper. Mommy Victoria says mean things about Mommy Sarah when she thinks I can't hear. She says Mommy Sarah was weak and stupid, and that's why she died. She says I'm going to end up the same way because I have her blood. Rage flared in Marcus's chest, but he kept his voice gentle. And what do you think about that? Arya's eyes sparked with intelligence far beyond her 6 years. I think Mommy Victoria is scared of something. After Mommy Sarah died, I started reading books about feelings because Dr. Peterson said understanding emotions helps when you're sad. People only say mean things when they're scared or hurt inside. Dr. Peterson was Arya's child psychologist, someone Marcus had hired to help her process her mother's death. The woman had been amazed by Arya's emotional intelligence and ability to read between the lines of adult behavior. What else has Mommy Victoria said, Angel? She talks on the phone sometimes when she thinks I'm taking my afternoon quiet time, but I'm really good at being still and listening. Arya's voice dropped to a whisper. She talks to someone about money and papers and about making sure something stays hidden forever. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Do you remember anything else she said? She said the name Blackwood a lot, and she always gets really angry when she mentions Mommy Sarah's will. She says things like, that woman thought she was so smart and we'll see who gets the last laugh. Sarah's will. Marcus had handled all the legal matters after his wife's death, but Victoria had been surprisingly interested in the details. At the time, he'd thought she was just trying to be helpful, ensuring Arya's future was secure. Daddy, there's something else. Arya's voice became even smaller. Sometimes late at night, I hear Mommy Victoria in your office. She uses the computer and looks through papers. I know because my bedroom is right above your office, and the old floorboards creak when someone walks around. Marcus's blood turned cold. His office contained confidential business documents, personal financial information, and most importantly, all of Sarah's personal effects and papers that he'd never been able to bring himself to go through properly. Arya, this is very important. Do you know what papers she looked at? The pink folder. The one with Mommy Sarah's name written in pretty letters, and she always looks in the little silver box where you keep Mommy's special jewelry. Sometimes she takes pictures of things with her phone. Marcus knew exactly what she meant. Sarah's jewelry box contained not just her precious pieces, but also personal letters, photographs, and a key to a safety deposit box that Sarah had mentioned before she died, but that Marcus had never opened. It had felt too final, too much like giving up hope. Daddy, I think Mommy Victoria isn't really who she says she is. One time I heard her on the phone, and she used a different name. She called herself Victoria Blackwood, not Victoria Hastings like she told us. A sound from downstairs made them both freeze. Footsteps in the foyer, too confident and familiar to be the housekeeper who had left hours ago. Daddy? Arya whispered, instinctively moving closer to him. Marcus stood up, every protective instinct screaming. Stay here, Angel. Lock the door behind me and don't open it for anyone but me. As he moved toward the stairs, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Checking up on your precious little princess? Some secrets are too dangerous to ignore, Marcus. Your wife knew more than she let on. Check her safety deposit box if you want to know what you're really dealing with. V. The text was followed by an address and a key number. The same safety deposit box Marcus had never opened. His hands shaking, Marcus realized that Victoria hadn't just been emotionally torturing his daughter. She'd been playing a much longer, more dangerous game, and Sarah's death might not have been as natural as everyone believed. From upstairs came the sound of Arya's door locking, followed by her small voice calling out, Daddy, please be careful. I love you. As the footsteps moved through his house, footsteps that definitely belonged to Victoria, despite his demand that she leave. Marcus realized that his daughter's safety, and possibly both their lives, depended on uncovering whatever Victoria had been searching for all these months. The truth about Sarah's death was buried somewhere in that safety deposit box, and someone was willing to do whatever it took to keep it buried. The next morning dawned grey and stormy, matching Marcus's mood as he sat across from Detective Rachel Chen in the downtown police station. He'd called the police after finding clear signs that someone had returned to his house the night before. His office showed subtle signs of disturbance, and Sarah's jewelry box had been moved. "Mr. Thompson, I understand your concern about the emotional treatment of your daughter, but proving psychological abuse can be challenging," Detective Chen said carefully. "What we need is concrete evidence of threatening behavior or financial misconduct." "Detective Chen," Marcus interrupted, sliding a folder across the metal table. "These are records from Aria's pediatrician, her teachers, and her therapist over the past year. Dr. Peterson has documented significant behavioral changes in Aria, increased anxiety, withdrawal, and what she calls hypervigilance, typical of children living in emotionally unsafe environments." Detective Chen opened the folder, her eyebrows rising as she reviewed the documents. Dr. Peterson's notes mention that Aria has developed adult-level observation skills and excessive compliance behaviors. That's concerning. There's more. "I have reason to believe Victoria may have been involved in something concerning my first wife's death, and she's been systematically searching through Sarah's personal effects." He explained about the safety deposit box, Victoria's mysterious phone calls that Aria had overheard, and the threatening text message. Detective Chen listened with growing interest. "Mr. Thompson, your first wife died of cancer, correct? Are you suggesting there was foul play?" Marcus hesitated. Even saying it out loud felt surreal. "I don't know yet. But Sarah's oncologist, Dr. Michael Chen, called me yesterday with some disturbing information. Apparently, Victoria visited Sarah several times during her final week, bringing her special herbal teas and supplements that she claimed would help with the pain. And the doctor said Sarah's condition deteriorated much more rapidly after those visits. Her symptoms changed in ways that weren't consistent with her cancer progression. Dr. Chen said he'd been wondering about it for 2 years, but didn't want to cause additional grief by raising concerns. Detective Chen made notes in her file. "We'd need substantial evidence to pursue that line of investigation. Do you have any concrete proof of misconduct?" Marcus shook his head, frustration building. "Not yet. But I'm going to that safety deposit box today. Whatever Victoria was looking for, whatever Sarah left behind, it might have the answers we need. Mr. Thompson, I should mention that we ran a preliminary check on Victoria Hastings last night after your call. There are some discrepancies in her background that warrant further investigation." Marcus leaned forward. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The trust fund story doesn't check out completely. While there was a Victoria Hastings from Connecticut, that woman died in a car accident 5 years ago. Your wife appears to have assumed her identity sometime after that." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "So who is she really?" "We're still investigating, but we believe her real name is Victoria Blackwood. She was a licensed practical nurse who worked at several hospitals before her certification was revoked under suspicious circumstances." "What circumstances?" Detective Chen consulted her notes. "Multiple patient deaths during her shifts that couldn't be fully explained. No charges were ever filed due to lack of evidence, but the medical board felt there were enough concerns to revoke her license." An hour later, Marcus stood in the sterile vault of First National Bank with Aria by his side. He'd brought her partly for safety. He didn't trust leaving her anywhere Victoria might find her, and partly because Aria had insisted she had a right to know about her mother's secrets. "Are you ready for this, Angel?" Marcus asked, holding Sarah's key. Arya nodded solemnly, gripping her crutches tighter. "Mommy wanted us to find this. I can feel it in my heart." The safety deposit box was larger than Marcus had expected. Inside, beneath Sarah's important documents and some valuable jewelry, was a manila envelope marked, "For Marcus, if something happens to me." Beside it was a smaller envelope labeled "For Arya, when she's old enough to understand." With trembling hands, Marcus opened the larger envelope. Inside were photographs, medical records, and a letter in Sarah's handwriting. His heart stopped as he read the first line. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, then I was right to be afraid of Victoria." Arya leaned against him as he continued reading, her advanced reading skills allowing her to follow along. "I know this will be hard to believe, but Victoria is not who she pretends to be. Her real name is Victoria Blackwood, and she's not a trust fund baby from Connecticut. She's a former nurse who lost her license after being suspected of hastening patient deaths at several hospitals in the Midwest. I hired a private investigator when she started visiting me regularly during my illness. Something about her behavior felt wrong. The way she insisted on preparing my medications, the strange questions about my will and Arya's trust fund, and especially the way she looked at our daughter when she thought no one was watching. Marcus, I believe Victoria has been slowly poisoning me. The symptoms I experienced in my final weeks weren't consistent with my cancer progression. I've hidden evidence in our home. Look behind the false panel in our bedroom closet. There's a recording device there that captured several of her phone conversations with someone she calls Richard. The most frightening discovery is what I learned about her true intentions. Victoria sees Arya as an obstacle to accessing my trust fund and your wealth. The will I filed last month leaves everything to Arya until she turns 25, with you as trustee. Victoria gets nothing if she's not married to you, and even less if something happens to you both. I'm so sorry I can't protect you both myself. But please, don't let her win. Don't let her hurt our precious girl. There's more evidence in the smaller envelope, but wait until Arya is older to share it with her. All my love always, Sarah P.S. Dr. Michael Chen has been asking questions about my treatment. He's a good man who truly cared about helping me. Trust him if you need medical expertise to prove what Victoria has done. Marcus's hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold the letter. Arya, reading over his shoulder with her advanced abilities, had gone very pale but remained remarkably composed. "Daddy," she whispered, "Mommy knew Mommy Victoria was dangerous." Among the other documents were bank statements showing large payments to Victoria under her real name, dating back 8 months before Sarah's death. There were also medical records from 3 different hospitals where Victoria had worked, all showing patterns of unexplained patient deaths during her shifts. What made Marcus's stomach turn was a photocopy of research Victoria had apparently been doing, internet searches about inherited diseases, children's life insurance policies, and methods of making accidents appear natural. But the most chilling discovery was a handwritten note in Victoria's writing, "Child's condition makes perfect cover. Accidents happen to disabled children all the time. No one questions tragedy when it seems inevitable." Marcus felt Arya stiffen beside him as she read those words. "Daddy, is that about me?" Before Marcus could answer, his phone rang. Unknown number. "Marcus." Victoria's voice was different now, cold, calculating, with no pretense of sweetness. "I assume you've been busy this morning playing detective." "Victoria, where are you? Close enough to know you visited the bank. Did you enjoy reading Sarah's paranoid fantasies? She always was too suspicious for her own good." "You killed her." It wasn't a question. Victoria laughed, a sound devoid of any warmth. Sarah was dying anyway, Marcus. I just helped her along, saved everyone a lot of suffering. Very merciful, really. And you've been planning to hurt Arya too. Arya is a complication that needs to be resolved. Do you have any idea how much money that child represents? Your entire fortune, Marcus, with the right circumstances. I could inherit everything. Marcus felt Arya press closer to him, her small body trembling, but her face determined. You're sick, Victoria. I'm practical. I've been planning this for 2 years, Marcus. Ever since I learned about Sarah's trust fund from the hospital records. Do you really think our meeting was coincidence? Your wife's cancer was just an opportunity that fell into my lap. The police know everything now, Victoria. Dr. Chen has been asking questions, and they're investigating Sarah's death. Oh, Marcus, you sweet, naive man. You think the police can protect you? I've covered my tracks very carefully. And besides, I have insurance you don't know about. Marcus felt his chest tighten. What are you talking about? While you were playing detective this morning, I was making some very interesting discoveries of my own. Did you know your home security system has been recording everything for months? Including some very interesting conversations between you and certain business associates. Marcus quickly tried to think of what she might mean. His stomach dropped as he realized she was talking about the private conversations he'd had with his lawyers, about some aggressive business tactics that, while legal, might look questionable out of context. I've also been documenting some very interesting financial transactions, Victoria continued. Amazing how easy it is to make legitimate business dealings look suspicious when you present them the right way. Offshore accounts, cash transactions, meetings with people who have interesting backgrounds. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your email, darling. I've sent you a little preview of what I've compiled. If anything happens to me, copies of everything go to the FBI, the IRS, and several financial crime investigators. Your business empire won't survive the scrutiny. Marcus's phone buzzed with an email containing documents that made his blood run cold. Victoria had somehow obtained financial records and communications that, when taken out of context, could indeed make his legitimate business practices look criminal. What do you want, Victoria? $75 million, transferred to an account I'll send you details for. In exchange, I disappear forever, and all the evidence against you vanishes. You have 4 hours to decide. And if I refuse? Then you'll spend the next decade in federal prison while I raise your precious Arya as my own daughter. And Marcus, I'll make sure she understands every day that her daddy chose greed over her safety. The line went dead. Marcus looked at the evidence spread before him, proof of Victoria's guilt, but also proof that she'd been planning this trap for years. She'd anticipated his every move, prepared for this moment. Arya tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, she's lying about some things. Marcus looked down at his daughter. What do you mean, Angel? The recordings she says she has? I know where the security system keeps its files because I asked Mr. James to show me last year when I was worried about strangers. Arya's voice was steady and thoughtful. The system only keeps recordings for 30 days unless someone specifically saves them. And Mommy Victoria doesn't know the password to save them permanently. Marcus stared at his daughter, realizing once again that her intelligence might be their salvation. And Daddy, I know something else important. When Mommy Victoria talks to Richard on the phone, she uses the speaker sometimes because she thinks I can't hear from upstairs. But sound travels really well through the old heating vents in our house. What did you hear, Angel? Richard isn't just helping her for money. He's scared of her too. She has something on him, something about a fire at a hospital where people died. I think she's been making him help her by threatening him too. Marcus felt a spark of hope. If Victoria was blackmailing Richard, then maybe they could turn him against her. There's something else, Daddy. Yesterday, when I was supposed to be napping, I saw Victoria in your office again. But this time, she was taking papers out of your safe, not just looking at them. I think she's been stealing important documents for a long time. Marcus's heart raced. If Victoria had been stealing business documents, that was a federal crime that could land her in prison, regardless of anything else. Arya, do you think you could remember exactly which papers you saw her take? I don't think I could remember them, Daddy. But I took pictures with my tablet because I was worried she was stealing from you. Marcus stared at his remarkable daughter. While he'd been blind to Victoria's schemes, Arya had been quietly gathering evidence with the instincts of someone far older and wiser. Should I show the pictures to Detective Chen? Arya asked. Before Marcus could answer, his phone buzzed with another text from Victoria. Time's ticking, Marcus, and just so you know, I'm not the only one watching your daughter today. Make the wrong choice, and you'll never see her again. Marcus felt ice in his veins as he realized Victoria's threat had just escalated from financial ruin to kidnapping. But as he looked at his brave, intelligent daughter, he realized that Victoria had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated Arya Thompson, and that might be the key to stopping her once and for all. Daddy, I'm scared, Arya admitted quietly, but I think I know how we can catch her. Want to hear my plan? Back at the mansion, Marcus paced the living room, while Detective Chen and FBI agent Sarah Martinez set up recording equipment. Arya sat cross-legged on the sofa, her tablet in her lap, looking remarkably composed for a 6-year-old whose life was being threatened. Mr. Thompson, Agent Martinez said, reviewing the evidence they'd brought from the bank, your daughter's photographs and observations could be crucial, but we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before Victoria contacts you again. Arya looked up at her father with those wise eyes. Should I show them the pictures I took, Daddy? Marcus nodded, his heart racing as Arya navigated to a photo album on her tablet. I started taking pictures after Mommy Victoria said mean things about Mommy Sarah, she explained to the agents matter-of-factly. Dr. Peterson taught me that when grown-ups do bad things, other good grown-ups need proof to help. The first photo showed Victoria in Marcus's office, clearly photographed through a crack in the door. She was holding documents from his business safe, photographing them with her phone. I know she wasn't supposed to be in Daddy's private safe, because he told me it was only for very important papers, Arya explained. So when I saw her there, I knew something was wrong. Agent Martinez leaned forward intently. Arya, do you know how she got into the safe? I think she watched Daddy open it. Our house has lots of mirrors, and from the hallway you can see the reflection of the safe in the mirror above Daddy's desk. I figured that out when I was playing hide-and-seek. Marcus felt a chill. His supposedly private office was more visible than he'd realized. Arya swiped to another photo showing Victoria on the phone in the kitchen. This is when she talks to Richard. She doesn't know I can hear because the old heating vent goes from the kitchen right up to my playroom. What did you hear them talking about, sweetie? Detective Chen asked gently. Richard always sounds scared when he talks to Mommy Victoria. She says things like, remember what happened in Chicago, and do you want the fire investigation reopened? He does whatever she tells him to do. Agent Martinez exchanged glances with Detective Chen. Arya, did they ever talk about your daddy's businesses? Yes. Victoria has a list of all Daddy's buildings and when people visit them. She knows about the children's hospital because she used to work there when Mommy Sarah was sick, and she knows about my school because she came with us to the building meetings. Marcus suddenly understood. Victoria hadn't needed to break into secure facilities. She'd had legitimate access through their relationship and her previous employment. There's something else important, Arya continued, swiping to more photos. Mommy Victoria has been stealing things from our house for months. Not big things, little things like Daddy's business cards, copies of papers, and especially things that belonged to Mommy Sarah. The photos showed Victoria carefully going through Sarah's personal items, photographing documents and jewelry. "Why do you think she wanted your mommy's things?" Agent Martinez asked. "I think she was looking for secrets." Mommy Sarah was really smart about money and business stuff. She helped Daddy with important decisions. I think Mommy Victoria wanted to know all the same things Mommy Sarah knew. Detective Chen was taking detailed notes. "Arya, you mentioned that Victoria and Richard talked about other places besides your house. Do you remember where?" "The old warehouse by the water where Richard lives sometimes. Victoria goes there when she's really angry. And there's a storage place where they keep boxes of papers and other stuff they took from different places." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Angel, how do you know about these places?" "Sometimes when Victoria thought I was sleeping in the car, she would drive by them to check on things. I'm very good at pretending to sleep, and I have a really good memory for places." Agent Martinez was already coordinating with her team via radio. "We need surveillance on both locations immediately." "There's more," Arya said quietly. "Yesterday, when Victoria was being extra mean to me, she said something that scared me." "What did she say, sweetheart?" Marcus knelt beside his daughter. "She said that after today, she wouldn't have to pretend to care about stupid little girls with broken legs anymore. She said soon she'd have enough money to go far away and live like a queen." The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. "But I think she's lying about some things," Arya continued. "When people lie a lot, they start making mistakes. Victoria has been making lots of mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" Detective Chen asked. "She told me she grew up in Connecticut, but she doesn't know things that someone from Connecticut would know. And she said her parents died in a car crash, but one time when she was on the phone, she talked to someone she called Mom and complained about not having enough money." Marcus stared at his daughter in amazement. While Victoria had been playing psychological games with a 6-year-old, Arya had been quietly cataloguing inconsistencies with the sharp attention to detail of a trained investigator. "Also," Arya added, "she says she loves Daddy, but she only acts nice when other people are watching. When it's just me and her, she says things like, 'Your daddy is too stupid to see what's right in front of him, and this whole family deserves what's coming to them.'" Agent Martinez was taking rapid notes. "Arya, do you think Victoria knows that you've been paying attention to all these things?" "No, because adults usually think kids don't understand important things. But Mommy Sarah taught me that being small doesn't mean being stupid. She said my brain was my superpower." "Your mommy was very smart," Detective Chen said gently. "I miss her every day," Arya said simply. "But I think she would be proud that I'm trying to protect Daddy the same way she tried to protect both of us." Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes. His brave little girl had been carrying this burden alone for months, using intelligence and courage far beyond her years to document evidence against a woman who was systematically destroying their family. "Arya, you mentioned having a plan," Agent Martinez said. "Can you tell us about it?" Arya's expression grew serious. "Victoria thinks she's smarter than everyone else, but she's not smarter than all of us working together. She expects Daddy to be scared and do what she says. But what if we pretend to give her what she wants, and then catch her when she thinks she's safe?" "That's very dangerous, Angel," Marcus said. "But Daddy, she's already planning to hurt people whether we give her money or not. I heard her tell Richard that loose ends need to be tied up permanently. That means she's going to try to hurt us anyway." The adults exchanged concerned glances. Arya was right. Victoria had already crossed too many lines to simply disappear with money. "What exactly are you thinking, Arya?" Agent Martinez asked. "Victoria wants Daddy to meet her somewhere, to give her the money, right? But what if we set up the meeting in a place where lots of good guys can catch her? And what if we make sure she says all the bad things she's done out loud so everyone can hear? Marcus looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and terror. How would we do that? Well, Victoria really wants to tell Daddy how smart she is and how she fooled everyone. People who think they're smarter than everyone else always want to brag about it. If Daddy acts scared and asks her questions, she'll probably tell him everything. Agent Martinez nodded slowly. That's actually a sound psychological assessment. Most criminals in Victoria's position do want to gloat about their success. And, Arya continued, if we pick the right place for the meeting, the police can be hidden nearby to hear everything and catch her when she confesses. Detective Chen leaned forward. Arya, where do you think would be a good place for this meeting? The Children's Hospital, where Mommy Sarah used to go. Victoria knows that place really well, so she'll feel safe there. But it's also a place where lots of people work, so the police can pretend to be doctors and nurses. Marcus was astounded by his daughter's strategic thinking. Angel, that's incredibly smart, but it's also very dangerous. What if something goes wrong? Daddy, something's already wrong. Victoria is going to keep hurting people until someone stops her. And I think Mommy Sarah would want us to be brave enough to make sure no other families get hurt the way we did. As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's phone rang. Victoria. Put it on speaker, Agent Martinez instructed, gesturing for everyone to be quiet. Hello, Victoria, Marcus answered, his voice carefully controlled. Have you made your decision, darling? The clock is ticking and I'm not known for my patience. I need to see you in person to discuss terms, Marcus said, following the script Agent Martinez had quickly written on a notepad. This is too important for phone calls. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Interesting. You're trying to negotiate. I suppose that's what successful businessmen do. I want to make sure I understand exactly what you want and what you're offering in return. Very well. There's a coffee shop in the Children's Hospital, the same place where your dear Sarah spent her final weeks. How poetic. Meet me there in 2 hours. Why there? Victoria's laugh was cold. Because it amuses me, Marcus. And because it's a place with happy memories for me. Some of my finest work was done in that hospital. The line went dead. Agent Martinez was already coordinating with her team. We can have agents positioned as hospital staff within the hour. What about Arya? Marcus asked. I won't put her in danger. Actually, Daddy, Arya said quietly, I think I should come too. Absolutely not. Listen to me, Arya said with surprising firmness. Victoria will be expecting you to be scared and alone. If I'm there, she'll think you brought me because you're desperate and don't know what else to do. She'll feel more confident and more likely to tell the truth. Agent Martinez considered this. From a psychological standpoint, Victoria might indeed let her guard down if she thinks she's in complete control of the situation. De plus, Arya added, if Victoria sees me, she might say mean things about what she did to Mommy Sarah and what she wanted to do to me. That would be good evidence, right? Marcus felt torn between pride in his daughter's courage and terror at the thought of putting her anywhere near Victoria. I promise to stay close to you the whole time, Arya said, taking his hand. And Daddy, I'm not scared of Victoria anymore. She tried to make me feel small and broken, but Mommy Sarah taught me that I'm brave and strong and smart. Victoria can't take that away from me. Looking into his daughter's determined blue eyes, Marcus realized that Arya had already survived the worst Victoria could do to her. His little girl had endured months of psychological torment and emerged not as a victim, but as a hero, ready to protect others. Okay, Angel, he said finally. But we do this together, and we follow every safety rule the agents give us. Arya smiled, the first truly happy smile Marcus had seen from her in months. Together, Daddy, just like Mommy Sarah would have wanted. As FBI agents coordinated what would become the most important sting operation of Marcus's life, he realized that his 6-year-old daughter wasn't just brave. She was brilliant, and she was about to help bring down the woman who had destroyed their family and threatened countless others. The final confrontation was about to begin. The children's hospital bustled with its usual afternoon activity as Marcus and Aria walked through the familiar corridors toward the coffee shop. Agent Martinez and her team were already in position, disguised as medical staff, maintenance workers, and visitors throughout the area. Marcus carried a briefcase containing fake bank transfer documents, while Aria walked beside him with her crutches, looking like any other child visiting the hospital. Hidden microphones were sewn into both their clothing, transmitting everything to the FBI team. "Remember, Angel," Marcus whispered as they approached the coffee shop, "if anything feels wrong, you give me the signal and we leave immediately." Aria nodded, her face serious but unafraid. "I remember, Daddy. Touch my butterfly necklace if I want to go." They found Victoria sitting at a corner table, looking every inch the grieving stepmother in her black dress and understated jewelry. She stood and smiled warmly as they approached, but Marcus could see the coldness in her eyes that he'd been blind to for so long. "Marcus, darling," she said, opening her arms as if for an embrace. "And sweet little Aria, I wasn't expecting you to bring her." "I go everywhere with Daddy now," Aria said simply, settling into a chair with her crutches beside her. "I don't like being away from him." Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "Of course, sweetheart. After yesterday's misunderstanding, I'm sure you're feeling a bit confused." "I'm not confused," Aria replied calmly. "I understand everything perfectly." Marcus sat down, placing the briefcase on the table. "Victoria, let's get straight to business. What exactly do you want, and what are you offering in return?" Victoria glanced around the coffee shop, noting the other patrons going about their business. $75 million, as I told you. In exchange, I disappear forever, and all the troublesome evidence I've collected disappears with me." "What evidence?" Marcus asked, following Agent Martinez's coaching to get Victoria talking. "Oh, Marcus, where do I begin?" Victoria's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Let's start with your wife's death. Did you know that Sarah suspected me for weeks before she died? She even hired a private investigator. What did the investigator find? Nothing useful, unfortunately for Sarah. But her suspicions were quite correct. I was slowly introducing certain substances into her medication regimen. Nothing dramatic, just enough to accelerate what was already happening." Marcus felt rage building in his chest, but forced himself to remain calm. "Why would you do that?" "Because Sarah was taking too long to die and I was running out of patience. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to play the caring friend to someone you despise? She was so weak, so pathetic, always talking about her precious daughter and her wonderful husband." Aria had gone very still beside Marcus, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "You hated my mommy." Victoria turned to Aria with a smile that made Marcus's skin crawl. "Hated is such a strong word, darling. I simply found her unnecessary. She had everything I wanted, and she was too weak to appreciate it." "What I don't understand," Marcus said, "is how you planned all this. How did you even know about Sarah's illness?" Victoria laughed, clearly enjoying the opportunity to explain her cleverness. "Oh, Marcus, it was beautifully simple. I was working at the hospital when Sarah first came in for tests. I saw her medical records, saw how wealthy her husband was, and realized this was my chance." "Your chance for what?" "To finally get what I deserved. Do you know what it's like to spend your whole life watching other people have everything handed to them while you work your fingers to the bone for scraps? So you decided to insert yourself into our lives. I researched everything about your family. I learned about Sarah's friends, her interests, her volunteer work. Then I simply became the kind of person she would want to befriend. It was remarkably easy. Marcus felt sick as he realized how calculated Victoria's entire relationship with their family had been. And once Sarah trusted you, once she trusted me, I had access to everything. Your home, your financial information, your business contacts. Sarah was so grateful for my friendship during her illness that she never questioned my interest in family matters. Arya spoke up again, her voice carrying a maturity far beyond her 6 years. You were mean to me because you wanted my daddy's money. Victoria's mask slipped completely as she looked at Arya. You were an obstacle, little girl. A very inconvenient obstacle. Did you know that if something tragic happened to you, your father would inherit your trust fund? And if something then happened to your father, his grieving widow would inherit everything? You were planning to kill us both, Marcus said, his voice deadly quiet. Eventually, yes. But you forced my hand yesterday with your dramatic display of protectiveness. Really, Marcus, throwing me out over a little discipline. The child needs to learn her place in the world. Her place? Disabled children require firm handling. They need to understand that the world won't accommodate their limitations forever. I was actually doing her a favor by teaching her early. Marcus saw Arya's hands clench into small fists, but she remained silent. But now, Victoria continued, thanks to your interference, I need to accelerate my timeline. Which brings us to today's business arrangement. What if I refuse to pay? Victoria's smile turned predatory. Then several very interesting things happen. First, the evidence I've compiled about your business practices gets delivered to federal investigators. Creative accounting, offshore transactions, bribes disguised as consulting fees. It won't matter that most of it is legal but questionable. The investigation alone will destroy you. And while you're dealing with federal agents, I'll be filing for emergency custody of poor little Arya here. After all, her father is under investigation for financial crimes, and she needs a stable home environment. Arya looked up at Victoria with those wise blue eyes. You can't take care of me, you don't love me. Love? Victoria laughed harshly. Love is for weak people like your mother, sweetheart. I'll take care of you the same way I took care of her, efficiently and permanently. The words hung in the air like a confession of murder. Marcus leaned forward. You're admitting you killed Sarah. I'm admitting I helped a dying woman find peace. Very different things, legally speaking. And you're threatening to kill Arya. I'm simply pointing out that accidents happen to children with disabilities. Tragic, but not unexpected. From across the coffee shop, Agent Martinez made a subtle hand signal. They had everything they needed. And there's just one problem with your plan, Victoria, Marcus said. Oh, and what's that? Arya smiled for the first time since they'd sat down. You forgot that smart little girls grow up to be smart big girls. And my mommy taught me that bullies are just scared people pretending to be strong. Victoria frowned, suddenly sensing something was wrong. The other problem, Marcus continued, is that you underestimated my daughter. Tell her, Angel. Arya reached into her small purse and pulled out her tablet. I've been recording everything you said, Mommy Victoria, just like the police taught me to do. Victoria's face went white. You little brat, give me that device. She lunged across the table toward Arya, but before she could reach her, Agent Martinez and 3 other FBI agents had surrounded their table. Victoria Blackwood, you're under arrest for the murder of Sarah Thompson, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and terroristic threats, Agent Martinez announced, producing handcuffs. Victoria's face twisted with rage as she realized she'd been trapped. This is entrapment. You can't use anything I said here. Actually, Agent Martinez replied calmly, everything you said was voluntary confession to multiple felonies, recorded with the consent of the other parties present. As Victoria was handcuffed and read her rights, she turned one last venomous look toward Arya. You think you've won, you little freak? There are others who know what you're worth. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Arya said quietly, because bad people always lose when good people work together. As Victoria was led away, Marcus knelt beside his daughter and pulled her into a fierce hug. You were so brave, Angel, so incredibly brave. We were brave together, Daddy. Just like Mummy Sarah would have wanted. Agent Martinez approached them with a smile. That was excellent work from both of you. Victoria's confession, combined with the evidence you've provided, will put her away for life. What about Richard? Marcus asked. Already in custody. Once we picked him up, he couldn't confess fast enough. Turns out Victoria had been blackmailing him for years over a hospital fire he accidentally started. He's fully cooperating with our investigation. As they walked out of the hospital together, Arya looked up at her father. Daddy, can we go visit Mommy Sarah's grave? I want to tell her that the bad lady can't hurt anyone anymore. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Of course, Angel. I think she'd like that very much. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his renovated home office, looking out at the garden where Arya played with Dr. Michael Chen, who had become a regular visitor since the trial. The man who had once been Sarah's oncologist had revealed himself to be Arya's biological father, and while the DNA confirmation had been a surprise, it had brought unexpected joy to their expanded family. The transformation in their lives had been remarkable. With Victoria's trial concluded and her life sentence handed down, a weight had lifted from both Marcus and Arya that neither had fully realized they'd been carrying. The house felt lighter, warmer, filled with laughter instead of the tension that had dominated their lives for 2 years. "Daddy!" Arya called from the garden, where she was teaching Dr. Chen, Uncle Mike, as she'd taken to calling him, how to properly plant butterfly flowers. "Come see, the butterflies are back." Marcus smiled as he watched his daughter move confidently through the garden. The physical therapy she'd undergone after Victoria's arrest had strengthened her legs remarkably, and while she still needed her crutches for longer distances, she could now walk short stretches independently. More importantly, the fearful, hyper-vigilant child who had lived in constant emotional danger had blossomed into a confident, joyful little girl who felt safe to be herself. "The butterflies know they're safe here now," Arya had explained to him last week, "just like we do." Dr. Chen had been a revelation in their lives. His genuine care for Sarah during her illness had extended to a deep affection for Arya that went far beyond biological connection. He was patient, kind, and brilliant. Everything Marcus could have hoped for in both a friend and a father figure for his daughter. "Marcus," Dr. Chen called out, "you have to see this." Arya's created an entire ecosystem designed to attract specific butterfly species. She's been researching their migration patterns and preferred plants. Marcus joined them in the garden, marveling once again at his daughter's intelligence and determination. "How did you figure all this out, Angel?" "I've been reading about butterflies since Mommy Sarah died," Arya explained, carefully patting soil around a newly planted flower. "She always said I was like a butterfly, that I might start out looking fragile, but I would grow strong wings and fly." "Your mother was very wise," Dr. Chen said gently, "and she was right about your wings." The trial had been difficult for all of them, but Arya had testified with a courage and clarity that had moved everyone in the courtroom. Her detailed observations and recorded evidence had been crucial in securing Victoria's conviction, not just for Sarah's murder, but for the deaths of 7 other patients at hospitals where Victoria had worked. "Dr. Chen," Arya said, looking up from her gardening, "can I ask you something about Mommy Sarah?" "Of course, sweetheart." "What would you like to know? Were you sad when she died? I mean really sad, not just doctor sad." Dr. Chen paused in his planting, his expression growing thoughtful. "I was very sad, Arya. Your mother was a remarkable woman, and I cared about her very much, but I was also grateful that I got to know her even for a short time. I think she would have liked that you're here now, helping take care of me and Daddy." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. The relationship developing between Dr. Chen and their family felt natural and right, as if Sarah herself had somehow orchestrated this healing for all of them. "I have something to show you both, Dr. Chen said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment." He pulled out a small velvet box and handed it to Arya. "This was your mother's. She gave it to me during one of our conversations, before you were born. She said, if anything ever happened to her, I should make sure you got it when you were old enough to understand its importance." Arya opened the box with careful hands, revealing a delicate butterfly pendant on a silver chain. Inside the pendant was a tiny photo of Arya as a baby. "She knew," Arya whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "She knew what, Angel?" Marcus asked. "She knew you were my other daddy," Arya said to Dr. Chen. "That's why she wanted you to keep this safe for me." Dr. Chen nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Your mother was very perceptive. She figured it out before I found the courage to tell her. She wasn't angry. She was grateful that you would always have another person in the world who loved you completely." Marcus watched as Dr. Chen fastened the necklace around Arya's neck. The sight of his daughter wearing her mother's pendant, surrounded by the butterfly garden she'd created, filled him with a peace he hadn't felt since Sarah's death. "Daddy," Arya said, turning to Marcus, "I've been thinking about something important." "What's that, sweetheart?" "I want to do something to help other kids like me. Kids who might be scared because mean adults are hurting them." Marcus knelt down to his daughter's level. "What did you have in mind?" "Well, I learned a lot about how to notice when adults are lying or being mean. And I know how to gather evidence and talk to police officers. Maybe I could teach other kids those things too." Dr. Chen smiled. "That's a wonderful idea, Arya. There are organizations that work with children in difficult situations. They would be very interested in your insights." "Really?" Arya's face lit up with excitement. "Because I was also thinking, what if we turned part of our house into a safe place where kids could come when they're scared? We have so many rooms, and Uncle Mike says the butterfly garden has a calming effect on people." Marcus felt his heart swell with pride. His daughter, who had survived psychological torture and emerged stronger, now wanted to use her experience to help others. "I think that's a beautiful idea, Angel. We'll look into it." "And Daddy?" "I want to write a book about Mommy Sarah. Not about the sad parts, but about how she taught me to be brave and smart and kind. Other kids who lose their mommies might want to read it." Marcus had to blink back tears. "I think Mommy Sarah would love that very much." As the afternoon sun began to set, casting golden light through the butterfly garden, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Victoria's evil had nearly destroyed their family, but in fighting back, they had discovered strengths they never knew they possessed. Arya had grown from a frightened, abused child into a confident young girl with a clear sense of purpose. Marcus had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in the love and trust of the people who mattered most. And Dr. Chen had found a family he'd never dared hope for. "Daddy," Arya said, leaning against him as they watched butterflies dance among the flowers, "I think our story has a happy ending after all." "What makes you say that, Angel?" "Because we learned that love is stronger than hate, truth is stronger than lies, and families aren't just about who you're born to. They're about who chooses to love you." Marcus looked around at their perfect little family, himself, his brilliant daughter, and the good man who had helped them heal. "I think you're absolutely right, sweetheart. Plus," Arya added with a mischievous grin, "I heard you and Uncle Mike talking about maybe having another baby someday. I think I'd be a very good big sister." Marcus felt his cheeks flush as Dr. Chen laughed warmly. "You don't miss anything, do you, little butterfly?" Ah, Mommy Sarah taught me to pay attention to the important things, and families growing bigger with love is definitely important. As they walked back toward the house together, Marcus realized that Victoria's attempt to destroy them had actually led them to something more beautiful than he could have imagined. They had found their way to a love that was deeper, stronger, and more authentic than anything he'd ever known. The little girl who had once cried alone while being emotionally abused was now planning to help other children find their own strength. The man who had nearly lost everything to a manipulative killer had discovered that his real treasures couldn't be stolen or destroyed. And somewhere, Marcus liked to believe, Sarah was watching over them all with a smile, knowing that her sacrifice had not been in vain. Her daughter was safe, happy, and loved by not just one father, but two men who would protect her with their lives. "Daddy," Arya said as they reached the front door of their home, "I love our family exactly the way it is now." "Me too, Angel," Marcus replied, his heart full to overflowing. "Me too." Inside the house, the three of them settled into their evening routine. Homework at the kitchen table, Dr. Chen helping Arya with a science project while Marcus prepared dinner, the easy conversation of people who belonged together. Later that night, as Marcus tucked Arya into bed, she looked up at him with those wise blue eyes that reminded him so much of Sarah. "Daddy, do you think Mommy Sarah knows that we're happy again?" Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "I think she's been watching over us this whole time, making sure we found our way back to joy." "Good," Arya said sleepily, "because tomorrow I want to start working on that book about her and the Butterfly Sanctuary project, and maybe we should call some people about helping scared kids." Marcus smiled at his daughter's ambitious plans. "Tomorrow sounds perfect for new beginnings, Angel." As he turned off the light and closed her door, Marcus marveled at the resilience of the human spirit. Victoria had tried to break them, but instead she had forged them into something unbreakable. Their story wasn't just about surviving evil. It was about choosing love, hope, and healing in the face of darkness. It was about a little girl who refused to let cruelty define her, and the family that grew stronger in the broken places. And as Marcus settled into his own bed, surrounded by the peace of a home filled with genuine love, he knew that the best chapters of their story were still being written. The butterfly had indeed grown her wings, and she was ready to soar.
Little girl calls 911 and says my belly is moving. Truth leaves everyone in tears. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The clock on the wall of the Maplewood Emergency Dispatch Center read 10:43 a.m. when Sarah Miller's headset crackled with the voice that would change everything. 911, what's your emergency? Sarah asked, her fingers poised over the keyboard. A small voice whispered on the other end, my belly is moving. Sarah sat up straighter. In 15 years as a dispatcher, she'd never received a call quite like this. Hello, can you tell me your name? Nora, came the faint reply. I'm at school in the bathroom. Nora, honey, how old are you? 6. Sarah's training kicked in as she signaled her supervisor. Are you hurt, Nora? Is someone with you? No, I'm alone. The child's voice trembled. But my belly keeps moving, I'm scared. Sarah could hear the fear in the little girl's voice. She kept her own voice calm while she typed the location details. You're doing the right thing calling for help. Can you tell me which school you're at? Maplewood Elementary, the big bathroom. By the cafeteria. Within minutes, Principal Diana Wells was rushing down the hallway with the school nurse. The cold bathroom tiles echoed their hurried footsteps as they pushed open the door. Nora? Sweetie? Called Mrs. Wells. They found her in the last stall, huddled against the wall. Her small frame seemed even tinier as she clutched her noticeably swollen stomach, her face pale and drawn. My belly, she whispered, looking up with wide, frightened eyes. Something's moving inside. The nurse knelt beside her. Concern etched across her face as she gently placed a hand on Nora's forehead. "You're a bit warm, honey." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance as paramedics raced toward the school. Inside, teachers gathered in the hallway, whispering among themselves. Something about the little girl with no lunch money and too small clothes who never complained. As they carried Nora to the ambulance, her small hand clutched her stomach. "Will they make it stop moving?" she asked the paramedic. "We're going to help you, sweetheart," he promised, though his eyes held questions he couldn't voice. No one noticed the worn teddy bear falling from Nora's backpack as they lifted her into the ambulance. It landed silently on the pavement, a silent witness to the beginning of a story that would touch every heart in Maplewood. The ambulance raced through Maplewood's quiet streets, its siren piercing the ordinary Tuesday morning. Inside, Nora lay still, eyes fixed on the ceiling, one hand never leaving her stomach. "Has this happened before?" asked the paramedic, checking her vitals. Nora nodded slightly. "It started moving a long time ago. It gets bigger." The paramedic exchanged a concerned glance with his partner. Children Nora's age shouldn't have such distended abdomens. At Maplewood General Hospital, Dr. Rebecca Chen met them at the emergency entrance. "Hello, Nora. I'm Dr. Chen. We're going to figure out what's happening with your tummy, okay?" As nurses settled Nora into a pediatric room, Dr. Chen reviewed the preliminary assessment. "Patient is severely underweight, except for abdominal distension," she murmured to the nurse. "Contact social services immediately." Meanwhile, Officer James Parsons arrived at 1487 Elmwood Lane, Nora's address. The small blue house sat back from the road, partially hidden by overgrown shrubs. Paint peeled from the wooden siding. The porch sagged at one corner. He knocked 3 times before the door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman with cloudy eyes and silver hair in disarray. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Parsons. Are you Beatrice Morgan?" The woman squinted at him. "Who?" "Beatrice Morgan," he repeated. "I'm here about your granddaughter, Nora." "Nora?" Confusion crossed her face, then cleared momentarily. "My Elizabeth's girl. Is it time for school already? She makes her own breakfast, you know. Such a good girl." Officer Parsons stepped inside, noting the cluttered living room. Piles of newspapers, unwashed dishes, television blaring a game show no one was watching. The smell of neglect hung in the air, not malicious but the unmistakable scent of a home where things had quietly fallen apart. In the kitchen, he found what appeared to be Nora's breakfast, a bowl with dry cereal and a cracked mug. The xiao refrigerator contained little besides condiments and expired milk. In the bathroom cabinet, various over-the-counter medications stood in haphazard rows, many with childish fingerprints on the bottles. Back at the hospital, Nora sat quietly as nurses took blood samples. When asked about home, she spoke matter-of-factly. "Grandma forgets things. I make my own breakfast. I take medicine when my belly hurts, but I think I mixed them wrong because the box said not to mix the pills." Her small hand patted her swollen middle. "Sometimes it feels like butterflies inside. Is that bad?" In the hallway outside Nora's room, Dr. Chen met with Daniel Thompson from Social Services. Their hushed conversation was interrupted by the approaching footsteps of a silver-haired woman in a purple cardigan. "I'm Ellie Graham," she announced. "I was Nora's kindergarten teacher last year. I heard what happened. That child needs someone in her corner, and I'm here to help." "Mrs. Graham," Daniel Thompson extended his hand, recognizing the determination in the retired teacher's eyes. "How well do you know Nora?" "Well enough to know something's been wrong for months," Ellie replied, her voice soft, but firm. She started kindergarten bright-eyed and chatty. By year's end, she'd grown quiet, always clutching her stomach. Dr. Chen glanced through the doorway at Nora, who sat cross-legged on the hospital bed, carefully arranging packets of crackers from her lunch tray. "We're running tests," the doctor explained. "Her condition is concerning. Malnutrition alongside abdominal distension. Has she mentioned anything about her home life?" Ellie's eyes clouded. "Only that her grandmother gets mixed up sometimes. I tried calling home twice last year, but the conversations went nowhere. Inside the room, a nurse was asking Nora questions while taking her temperature. Do you make your own dinner too, sweetheart? Nora nodded. Soup from cans, or cereal. Grandma says I'm good at taking care of myself. And the medicine you mentioned, where did you get it? From the bathroom cabinet. There's a step stool I use. Nora hesitated. I tried the pink medicine first because it looked like candy, but it tasted bitter. Then I tried the white pills when my tummy started feeling funny. The nurse kept her expression neutral despite her concern. How many white pills did you take? Nora's, forehead wrinkled in concentration. I don't know. Different numbers on different days, sometimes more when my belly got bigger. In the hallway, Daniel was explaining the situation to Ellie. Officer Parsons found her grandmother confused, living in concerning conditions. She has advanced dementia. She keeps calling Nora by the name Elizabeth. Her mother, Ellie said quietly. Elizabeth Morgan. She passed away last year. Car accident. Nora came to school the next day as if nothing happened. I only found out from another teacher. Meanwhile, across town at Maplewood Elementary, Principal Wells opened Nora's student file. Inside was a form filled out in shaky handwriting listing Beatrice Morgan as guardian, no father noted. A sticky note from the school nurse documented 3 visits for stomach complaints in the past month. Back at the hospital, Ellie stood in Nora's doorway, watching the little girl who methodically folded her blanket into perfect quarters, then unfolded it, then started again. A self-soothing routine Ellie had noticed during difficult days at school. Hello, Nora, she said gently. Nora looked up, her eyes widening slightly. Miss Graham, did you come because of my moving belly? Ellie moved to the bedside chair. I came because I care about you. Can you tell me about your belly? Nora leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. It gets bigger and makes noises. Sometimes it hurts so bad I can't sleep. She hesitated, then added, I tried to fix it myself. I'm a big girl, that's what Grandma always says. As Nora spoke, Dr. Chen and Daniel watched from the doorway, witnessing the trust between teacher and child, perhaps the first step toward healing whatever mystery was unfolding in Nora's small, distended body. By Wednesday morning, whispers about Nora Morgan had spread through Maplewood like autumn leaves in the wind. At Frank's diner, the breakfast crowd buzzed with speculation. Poor little thing called 911 herself, said Martha from the post office, stirring her coffee. My nephew's a paramedic, said her stomach. Was all swollen up. Frank Cooper wiped down the counter with more force than necessary. Probably just attention-seeking. Kids these days get away with everything. I don't know, Frank, said Sheriff Davis, setting down his mug. We've seen this before. Her belly's grown too fast for a virus, added Nurse Patty from the clinic. Something's not right in that household. The bell above the door jingled as Daniel Thompson entered, the diner falling suddenly quiet. He felt the weight of their stares as he ordered coffee to go. How's the Morgan girl? Frank asked bluntly. Daniel chose his words carefully. She's receiving proper care now. At the hospital, Nora sat on her bed while Dr. Chen gently pressed her stethoscope against the girl's abdomen. The antiseptic smell made Nora's nose wrinkle. Does that hurt? Dr. Chen asked, noting Nora's wince. A little, Nora admitted. Is my belly sick? We're trying to figure that out, Dr. Chen replied kindly. Can you tell me what you eat at home? Nora twisted the edge of her blanket. Sometimes soup, sometimes crackers. The milk at home tastes funny, so I don't drink it much. And the medicine you took, why did you take it? My tummy hurt. And Nora looked down, her voice dropping to a whisper. I saw on TV that when ladies' bellies get big, they take special medicine. I thought maybe I needed it too. Dr. Chen's expression remained neutral, but her concern deepened. Outside Nora's room, Ellie waited as Officer Parsons approached with a worn teddy bear. Found this at the school, he said, handing it to Ellie. Seems important. When Ellie brought the teddy bear in, Nora's face lit up for the first time. "Mr. Buttons," she cried, clutching it to her chest. "I thought I lost him." "He was worried about you," Ellie said, sitting beside the bed. "Nora, would it be okay if I visited your house today? Maybe bring you some clean clothes?" Nora nodded slowly. "Can you feed Grandma's fish? I always feed them on Wednesdays." "Of course I can." As Ellie prepared to leave, Dr. Chen pulled her aside. "Mrs. Graham, we're still running tests, but I'm concerned about what she's been consuming. The combination of medications she described could cause serious digestive issues and bloating." Ellie nodded gravely. "I'm going to her house now. Maybe I'll find something that helps explain this." Meanwhile, in the hospital cafeteria, Daniel overheard two nurses whispering. "Just like that case in Westfield last year. Poor thing probably doesn't even understand." He cleared his throat as he approached, and they fell silent, their eyes full of assumptions about a situation they didn't fully understand. Just like the rest of Maplewood, where rumors continued to swirl about the little girl with the moving belly. The key to the Morgan house felt heavy in Ellie's hand as she stood on the sagging porch. Daniel had obtained permission for her to gather Nora's belongings, but nothing had prepared Ellie for the wave of sadness that washed over her as she stepped inside. Sunlight struggled through dusty windows, illuminating a home frozen in time. Framed photos showed a younger Beatrice with a woman who must have been Elizabeth, Nora's mother. No recent pictures were displayed, as if life had stopped being documented when Elizabeth died. The living room told the story of Beatrice's decline. Magazines from 3 years ago stacked beside current mail, a calendar still showing last February, prescription bottles with Beatrice's name lined up on an end table. "Oh, Nora," Ellie whispered to the empty room. "You've been carrying so much." In the kitchen, Ellie found mismatched dishes in the sink, a step stool by the counter, and a box of cereal. Nora's main food source, it seemed. The refrigerator held little besides condiments and a carton of spoiled milk. The bathroom floor stuck to Ellie's shoes. The shower curtain hung partially detached, and the medicine cabinet door wouldn't close properly due to the jumble of bottles inside. Ellie examined them. Antacids, laxatives, pain relievers, many expired. Several had childish fingerprints on them. In the trash can, something caught her eye. A small, cardboard box with pink and blue designs. Ellie picked it up carefully. It was an expired home pregnancy test, the instructions torn as if someone had tried to read them but given up. "Oh my goodness," she breathed, suddenly understanding some of the town's whispers. She found Nora's bedroom at the end of the hall, a small sanctuary amid the chaos. Unlike the rest of the house, it was meticulously organized. The bed was made with hospital corners. School clothes hung neatly in the closet, arranged by color. A small desk held carefully stacked schoolwork, all completed, all bearing gold stars. On the nightstand sat a glass of water and 3 different medicine bottles, lined up by size. Beneath the bed, Ellie discovered a shoebox containing half-eaten crackers, a granola bar, and more medicine, a child's emergency stash. In the drawer, she found a children's book about the human body, open to a page about digestion, with crude crayon circles drawn around the stomach. Several words were underlined in wobbly handwriting: acid, bloating, and movement. Next to it lay a paper where Nora had practiced writing. "Dear Mom in heaven, my belly hurts. I'm trying to fix it like a big girl." Tears filled Ellie's eyes as she gathered clothes for Nora. In this house, a 6-year-old had been playing doctor with herself, trying to understand her body's distress signals with no adult guidance. As Ellie prepared to leave, she remembered Nora's request. She found the fishbowl in Beatrice's room, the water cloudy, the single goldfish barely moving. She cleaned it quickly, feeling the weight of all she'd discovered pressing on her heart. The house was quiet as she closed the door behind her, too quiet for a home where a child should be laughing, playing, being cared for. In her car, Ellie called Daniel. "I found something you need to see." The fluorescent lights of the hospital conference room cast harsh shadows as Ellie placed the items from Nora's house on the table. The medicine bottles, the anatomy book with crayon markings, and the empty pregnancy test box. She thought it was candy, Ellie explained quietly. I found bite marks on the cardboard. Dr. Chen, Daniel Thompson, and Officer Parsons exchanged troubled glances. This explains a lot, Dr. Chen said, examining the medicine bottles. Adult-strength laxatives, antacids, and pain relievers, all taken together by a 6-year-old trying to self-medicate. Daniel's normally composed professional demeanor cracked slightly. She was trying to care for herself the only way she knew how. The preliminary tests show significant digestive distress, Dr. Chen continued. Her electrolytes are imbalanced and the chronic laxative use has caused severe bloating and intestinal spasms, which would explain the movement she feels. Officer Parsons shook his head. And the town's already jumping to the worst conclusions. What about her grandmother? Ellie asked. Daniel sighed. I visited the memory care unit this morning. Beatrice has advanced dementia. The neurologist estimates she's been significantly impaired for at least 8 months. She repeatedly called me by her late husband's name and thought Nora was her daughter Elizabeth. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the distant sounds of the hospital corridor. How did no one notice? Officer Parsons finally asked. Ellie's voice was strained. Nora adapted. She's smart and fiercely independent. At school she never complained, always had her homework done. The few times I suspected something, she had perfect explanations. Children are surprisingly resilient, Dr. Chen said, and unfortunately good at hiding their struggles when they're afraid of the consequences. Down the hall in her room, Nora sat cross-legged on the bed, watching cartoons with an expression of wonder. A proper meal sat half-eaten on her tray. More food than she typically saw in a day. The TV was a luxury she rarely experienced at home since Grandma kept it tuned to the same static-filled channel. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Ellie entered, carrying a small duffel bag of Nora's clothes. I fed your fish, Ellie said, sitting beside the bed. He looks much happier now. Thank you, Nora said softly. Is Grandma okay? Ellie took a deep breath. Your grandmother is getting special help from doctors who understand why she gets confused. Nora's small fingers picked at the loose threads of her blanket. Is she sick like me? Yes, but in a different way. Her mind gets mixed up sometimes. I know, Nora whispered. Sometimes she calls me Elizabeth and says I should be taking care of my daughter. Her eyes filled with tears. That's me, isn't it? I'm her granddaughter. Ellie's heart ached at the confusion this child had. Been living with. Yes, sweetheart. Elizabeth was your mom. Will I have to live with strangers now? Nora asked, her voice trembling. The question hung in the air between them. A child's greatest fear laid bare under the harsh hospital lights. Ellie reached for Nora's hand, a decision crystallizing in her mind. Not if I can help it. Night fell over Maplewood General Hospital, the corridors growing quiet as visitors departed, and the day shift changed to evening staff. In room 212, however, sleep remained elusive. It hurts again, Nora whimpered, curled into a tight ball on her side. Ellie, who had stayed well past visiting hours with special permission, stroked Nora's hair. I know, sweetheart. The medicine Dr. Chen gave you needs time to work. Nora's stomach pulsed like a sunken drum. The sound of her own body hurt. It's moving more than before, she whispered. Fearfully, Dr. Chen had explained this might happen. As Nora's system began to recover from the improper medications, she might experience increased discomfort temporarily. The road to healing wasn't always a straight line forward. Can you tell me a story? Nora asked, her voice small in the dimly lit room. About anything except bellies. Ellie smiled gently. How about the story of the brave little star who got lost in the sky? As Ellie's soothing voice filled the room with tales of adventure and courage, Nora's tense shoulders gradually relaxed. By the time a nurse came to check vitals at midnight, the little girl had finally drifted to sleep, one hand clutching Mr. Buttons, the other holding tight to Ellie's fingers. You should get some rest too, the nurse whispered to Ellie. We can call if anything changes. Ellie shook her head. I promised I'd stay. The promise had been made. Hours earlier, when Nora's pain had intensified, causing a panic attack that required additional medication. Don't leave me, she had begged, eyes wide with a fear no child should know. The last time someone left, they never came back. Now, in the quiet of the hospital night, Ellie watched Nora's chest rise and fall in sleep, her face peaceful for the first time. The retired teacher had always believed in the power of education to change lives. But this went beyond teaching. This was about salvation, not just for Nora, but perhaps for Ellie herself, whose empty house had grown too quiet since her husband's passing 3 years ago. Across town, Daniel Thompson sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork. Emergency foster care arrangements, medical consent forms, court petitions. The system moved slowly, even in urgent cases like Nora's. His phone rang. Officer Parsons. Thought you should know, Parsons said without preamble. The rumors are getting worse. Some parents at the elementary school are demanding protection for their kids, as if Nora's situation is somehow contagious. The principal called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. Daniel rubbed his temples. I'll be there, and I'm bringing Dr. Chen to explain the medical facts. Good luck with that, Parsons replied. Once people make up their minds about a story, they don't like having it rewritten. Back at the hospital, Nora woke suddenly at 3 a.m., a cry escaping her lips as pain seized her abdomen. Ellie! She gasped, reaching blindly in the dark. I'm here, Ellie assured her, already pressing the call button. I'm right here. As the night nurse rushed in, followed by the on-call doctor, Nora's face contorted with pain. Make it stop, she pleaded. Please make it stop moving. Hours passed in a blur of vitals checks, medication adjustments, and whispered medical consultations. By dawn, the crisis had passed. Nora's system was finally responding to the proper treatment. As morning light filtered through the window blinds, Ellie made a decision. Still holding Nora's hand, she pulled out her phone and called Daniel. I want to apply to be Nora's foster parent, she said without hesitation. Whatever it takes. Frank Cooper wiped down the counter of his diner with the same methodical precision he'd employed for 30 years. The morning rush was over, leaving only a few regulars nursing. Coffee refills. Did you hear? Martha whispered loudly to Sheriff Davis. The Morgan girl had some kind of episode last night. Ambulances, doctors running. Frank shook his head. Folks need to mind their own business. It's a sick child, not the town's latest entertainment. Martha looked surprised at Frank's sharp tone. Usually he was the first to offer commentary on local happenings. The bell above the door jingled as Principal Wells entered, looking tired. She slid onto a stool at the counter. Just coffee, Frank. Black as you can make it. Frank poured her a cup. Rough morning? Emergency parent meeting, she sighed. Everyone's got opinions about Nora Morgan's situation, and most of them aren't kind. Frank's hand stilled. What kind of situation does a 6-year-old have that deserves unkindness? You know how people talk, she replied. They see a child with a swollen belly and jump to conclusions. Never mind that Dr. Chen and that social worker tried to explain it's a medical condition from taking the wrong medications. Frank set the coffee pot down harder than necessary. Medical condition? Apparently she was taking care of herself, trying to treat her own stomach problems with whatever she found in the medicine cabinet. Poor thing thought she was doing the right thing. Frank turned away abruptly, disappearing into the kitchen. When he returned several minutes later, his face was composed, but his eyes held a new intensity. Tell me more about this, child, he said quietly. At the hospital, Nora was feeling better. The worst of the pain had subsided, leaving her tired but more comfortable than she'd been in months. Dr. Chen had explained that her body was healing from the inside out. Like when you clean up a really messy room, the doctor had said. Sometimes it looks worse before it gets better. Ellie had gone home briefly to shower and change, promising to return with a surprise. Nora was coloring a get-well card for her grandmother, when an unfamiliar voice spoke from the doorway. "Excuse me, Miss Morgan, I've brought you something." A tall man with silver hair and a crisp white apron stood there, holding a paper bag that smelled deliciously sweet. "Who are you?" Nora asked cautiously. "Frank Cooper. I own the diner in town." He approached slowly, setting the bag on her tray table. "Homemade vanilla milkshake, easiest thing on a tender tummy." Nora eyed him suspiciously. "Why?" Frank's weathered face softened. "Because 40 years ago my Julie was in a hospital just like this. Her belly hurt too, from medicine that wasn't right for her. Nobody understood what was happening." He paused. "She was my granddaughter." Nora's eyes widened. "Did she get better?" "She did. Took some time, but she got better." Frank smiled sadly. "She lives in California now. Calls me every Sunday." Nora carefully pulled the milkshake from the bag. "Thank you, Mr. Cooper." As she took her first sip, Daniel appeared in the doorway with a folder of papers. His eyebrows rose at the sight of Frank. "Mr. Cooper, didn't expect to see you here." Frank stood straighter. "Just dropping off a milkshake. But now that you're here, I've been thinking, that Morgan house needs work before it's livable again. I know some people who could help. No charge." Daniel looked surprised. "That's very generous, but—" "Not generous," Frank interrupted. "Necessary. Sometimes a town needs to show what it's really made of." He turned to Nora. "Enjoy that shake, Miss Morgan. I'll be bringing you another tomorrow." As Frank left, Nora looked at Daniel with confusion. "Why is he helping me? He doesn't even know me." Daniel sat beside her bed. "Sometimes people surprise you." "Speaking of surprises, Ellie Graham has asked to be your temporary foster parent. How would you feel about that?" For the first time in days, a genuine smile spread across Nora's face, brighter than any medicine could produce. Autumn sunlight streamed through Ellie Graham's kitchen window, illuminating the stack of forms spread across the oak table. Daniel Thompson sat across from her, explaining each document with patient precision. "The home study will be expedited given the circumstances," he said, pointing to a highlighted section. "But there's still a process we need to follow. Background checks, home inspection, character references." Ellie nodded, signing her name with determined strokes. "Whatever it takes." "Are you sure about this, Ellie?" Daniel asked. Gently. Taking in a child with Nora's history, it won't always be simple. Ellie's pen paused mid-signature. "Daniel, I've taught children for 42 years. I know simple doesn't exist when it comes to kids. What exists is necessary. And this is necessary, for Nora and frankly for me too." Daniel smiled. "Just checking now about Beatrice's guardianship rights." A knock interrupted them. Ellie opened the door to find Frank Cooper standing on her porch, hat in hand. "Sorry to intrude, Mrs. Graham. Thought you might want to see this." He handed her a piece of paper, a sign-up sheet with at least 20 names. "Volunteers to help fix up your place for the home inspection. And the Morgan house, too, eventually." Ellie's eyes widened. "Frank, this is the town stepping up," he finished. "Took 'em long enough." At the hospital, Dr. Chen was explaining Nora's discharge plan. "The swelling has decreased significantly," she told Nora, who sat cross-legged on the bed in fresh pajamas Ellie had brought. "But your body needs time to fully recover. That means a special diet for a while and the right medicine, which I'll show you and Ellie how to take properly." Nora nodded. Solemnly, her hand unconsciously drifting to her stomach. "If I eat too much, will the thing grow again?" she asked, worry creasing her small forehead. Dr. Chen sat on the edge of the bed. "Nora, there was never anything growing inside you. What you felt moving was your tummy being upset from taking medicines that weren't right for you. With proper food and care, that feeling will go away completely." "Promise?" Nora whispered. "I promise," Dr. Chen replied firmly. "And I need you to promise something too. No more taking medicine without a grown-up's help, even if your tummy hurts. I promise." Nora said, "Ellie will help me now." Later that afternoon, Ellie returned to the hospital with a small suitcase. "Everything's ready at home," she told Nora. "Your room has fresh sheets, and there's chicken soup simmering for dinner." "My room?" Nora repeated, wonder in her voice. "Well, it's my guest room, but we'll make it yours." Ellie smoothed Nora's hair. "I brought pictures to show you." They sat together looking at photos of a sunny yellow room with a patchwork quilt and curtains patterned with stars. The last photo showed a small desk by the window. "That was my daughter Rebecca's desk when she was little," Ellie explained. "She's grown up now, living in Seattle with her family. She's excited to meet you when she visits for Thanksgiving." Nora traced the outline of the desk with her finger. "Can I do my homework there?" "Of course," Ellie smiled. "And anything else you want." "To learn." As discharge time approached, a nurse entered with a wheelchair. Hospital policy for all patients leaving. "I don't need that," Nora protested. "My belly doesn't hurt as much now." "Rules are rules," the nurse winked. "Think of it as your chariot, Princess Nora." As they wheeled down the corridor, hospital staff who had cared for Nora emerged from rooms and stations to wave goodbye. At the main entrance, an unexpected crowd waited. Daniel, Officer Parsons, Principal Wells, and Frank Cooper, holding another milkshake. "The welcome committee," Daniel explained to a wide-eyed Nora as Ellie helped Nora into her car. The little girl looked back at the hospital with mixed emotions. "Will I have to come back?" she asked anxiously. "Just for checkups," Ellie assured her, "to make sure you're getting stronger." Nora fell silent, watching the autumn leaves swirl alongside the car as they drove toward Ellie's house, toward a new beginning neither of them had anticipated just days ago. "Ellie," Nora's small voice broke the silence. "What if my belly starts moving again?" "Then we'll handle it together," Ellie promised, reaching over to squeeze Nora's hand. "You're not alone." "Anymore." "This is it," Ellie said, pulling into the driveway of a neat white cottage with emerald green shutters. Flower boxes hung beneath each window, filled with chrysanthemums in autumn gold and burgundy. Nora pressed her face against the car window, taking in every detail of the place that would be her temporary home. It looked like houses in storybooks, the kind where nothing bad ever happened. "It's pretty," she whispered. Inside, the house smelled of simmering soup and cinnamon. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains, casting dappled patterns across hardwood floors. Family photos lined the hallway, smiling faces Nora didn't recognize but somehow made her feel welcome. "Would you like to see your room first, or have some soup?" Ellie asked. "Room, please," Nora replied, still clutching Mr. Buttons tightly. The yellow room was even brighter in person. A bookshelf held titles Nora recognized from school, and new pajamas were folded neatly on the pillow. But what caught her eye was the fishbowl on the dresser, her goldfish swimming in clear water. "You brought Gilbert," Nora breathed. "Of course, he's family too." As Ellie unpacked Nora's few belongings, the little girl explored the room cautiously, running her fingers along the quilt, testing the softness of the rug with her toes. She stopped at a small wooden box on the nightstand. "What's this?" "Open it," Ellie encouraged. Inside was a child-sized flashlight, a notepad with colored pencils, and a small silver bell. "The flashlight is if you wake up and need to see," Ellie explained. "The notepad is for any thoughts or worries that come to you. And the bell," she smiled gently, "is to ring if you need me during the night, no matter what time." Nora stared at the bell. At the hospital, she'd had to press a button for help. Before that, at home, there had been no one to call at all. "Thank you," she said softly. After a lunch of chicken soup with star-shaped pasta, Ellie showed Nora around the rest of the house. The kitchen with its cookie jar shaped like an owl. The living room with a rocking chair. By the fireplace. The sunroom where Ellie painted watercolors. "And this," Ellie said, opening a final door, "is my garden." The backyard wasn't large, but every inch burst with life. Late roses climbed a trellis. Vegetable beds held the last of the season's tomatoes, and a small apple tree drooped, with ripening fruit. "Can I go outside?" Nora asked, the first thing she'd requested since arriving. "Of course." Nora stepped cautiously onto the grass, her hospital-pale face turned up to the autumn sun. She walked slowly around the garden, stopping to touch a leaf here, smell a flower there. The back corner, she discovered a small stone bench beneath the apple tree. "That's my thinking spot," Ellie explained, joining her. "When problems feel too big, I sit here, and sometimes the answers come." Nora sat gingerly on the bench. "I have a big problem," she confessed. "What's that?" "Sweetheart, I don't know how to be someone who lives with a person who's not Grandma." Ellie settled beside her. "Well, that's something we'll figure out together. For now, you just need to rest and get better." That evening after dinner, as the sky darkened to indigo, Ellie helped Nora with her first proper medication routine, explained clearly, measured carefully, recorded on a chart they made together. "See, medicine works better when taken the right way," Ellie explained. At bedtime, Nora sat stiffly on her new bed, looking small against the pillows. "Would you like me to read a story?" Ellie asked. Nora nodded, selecting a book about a lost kitten who finds a new home. Halfway through the story, Nora's eyes grew heavy. Ellie tucked the blanket around her and rose to leave. "Wait," Nora said suddenly, her voice thick with sleep. "Will you check on Grandma tomorrow? I always read her the newspaper on Saturdays." "We can visit her together," Ellie promised. "Sleep well, Nora." But sleep proved elusive. At 2 a.m., Ellie woke to the gentle tinkling of a silver bell. She found Nora sitting upright, tears streaming down her face. "I had a bad dream," she hiccuped. "Grandma was calling for me, but I couldn't find her." Ellie sat on the bed, gathering the trembling child into her arms. "It's okay to miss her. It's okay to be scared." "Will it always hurt like this?" Nora asked, her voice muffled against Ellie's shoulder. "No, sweetheart," Ellie whispered, rocking gently. "Hearts are amazingly good at healing, just like bellies." 3 days into Nora's new life at Ellie's cottage, routines were beginning to form. Breakfast at the sunny kitchen table, medicine with a special chart where Nora could place star stickers after taking each dose correctly. Afternoons reading in the garden or coloring at her new desk. Today was special, their first visit to see Grandma Beatrice at Pine Grove Memory Care Center. Nora had chosen her nicest outfit and carefully brushed her hair. "Do you think Grandma will like this place?" she asked Ellie as they drove through town. "I think she's getting good care there," Ellie answered truthfully. "The doctors are helping her mind just like they helped your tummy." Pine Grove was nothing like Nora had imagined. Instead of the cold, clinical hospital she'd envisioned, the center resembled a large country inn with rocking chairs on the porch and gardens visible through wide windows. Inside, residents moved about freely, some reading in sunlit corners, others participating in a gentle exercise class. The walls displayed artwork and photographs, creating a home-like atmosphere. A kind-faced nurse named Marianne led them to Beatrice's room. "She's having a good day," she whispered to Ellie. "But remember, her clarity comes and goes." Beatrice sat by the window, her silver hair neatly combed, wearing a blue cardigan Nora recognized from home. When she turned and saw them, her face lit up with a smile that made Nora's heart leap. "There's my girl," Beatrice said, opening her arms. Nora ran to her grandmother, burying her face in the familiar scent of lavender powder. For a wonderful moment, everything felt normal. "I've missed you," Nora whispered. Beatrice stroked her hair. "I've missed you too. Elizabeth." Nora's body stiffened. Ellie, watching closely, saw the change immediately. "Beatrice," she said gently. "This is Nora, your granddaughter." Confusion clouded Beatrice's eyes. "Nora? But—" She looked down at the child in her arms, blinked several times, then nodded slowly. "Yes, of course. Nora, my little caretaker." The visit continued with moments of connection interspersed with confusion. Nora read to her grandmother from a magazine as promised. Beatrice sometimes followed along, sometimes drifted into memories from decades past. When it was time to leave, Beatrice hugged Nora tightly. "You be good for your mother now," she whispered. In the car, Nora sat silently, staring out the window. "Are you okay?" Ellie asked gently. "She doesn't know who I am," Nora said flatly. "Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. That's part of her illness. Will she ever get better? Like I am?" Ellie chose her words carefully. Her illness is different. The doctors can help her be comfortable, but her memory problems won't go away completely. That evening, Nora picked at her dinner, barely eating. When Ellie suggested an early bedtime, she complied without protest, unusual for a child who typically negotiated for just 5 more minutes. At midnight, Ellie woke suddenly, unsure what had disturbed her sleep. She listened carefully. No silver bell. Still, a sense of unease prompted her to check on Nora. The yellow bedroom was empty. "Nora!" Ellie called. "Ellie?" Trying to keep panic from her voice. A small sound from the bathroom drew her attention. The door was partially open, light spilling into the hallway. Nora knelt on the bathroom floor, surrounded by open medicine bottles from the cabinet. Scattered pills lay on the tiles, the taste of stale crackers. She'd hidden in her room lingered in her mouth. "My belly hurts again," she said, looking up at Ellie with tearful eyes. "I was trying to fix it." Ellie's heart nearly stopped. "Nora, did you take any of these?" "No," Nora whispered. "I remembered the promise, but I wanted to." Ellie knelt beside her, carefully gathering the pills. "Why didn't you ring the bell? I would have helped you." Nora's face crumpled. "I've learned that grown-ups leave when I ask for help. Pills don't." The raw truth of those words hung in the air between them. "Oh, Nora," Ellie whispered, pulling the child into her arms. "I'm not going anywhere, I promise." As Nora sobbed against her shoulder, Ellie realized how deeply traumatized the little girl was by her experiences, how a few good days couldn't erase months of loneliness and self-reliance. "We'll get through this together," she promised, rocking Nora gently, one day at a time. Later, after Nora had fallen asleep in Ellie's bed, the silver bell placed deliberately within reach, Ellie made a phone call. "Dr. Chen? It's Ellie Graham. I think Nora needs more help than just medicine." "And how does your tummy feel when you're worried?" Dr. Melissa Parker asked, her kind eyes focused on Nora. They sat in a bright office filled with stuffed animals, art supplies, and a miniature sandbox. It was Nora's 3rd session with the child psychologist Dr. Chen had recommended. "Like butterflies," Nora replied, arranging small wooden figures in the sand. "But angry butterflies." Dr. Parker nodded. "That's a really good description. Our bodies often tell us about our feelings before our minds can find the words." Nora placed a small wooden house in the sand, then a tiny figure far away from it. "Ellie says my belly got sick because I took the wrong medicine. But sometimes I think it got sick because I was sad all the time." "Both can be true," Dr. Parker said gently. "Our feelings and our bodies are connected." Outside in the waiting room, Ellie flipped through a magazine without really seeing the pages. These weekly sessions were helping Nora, but each one revealed new layers of the little girl's silent suffering. Last week, they'd discovered Nora believed her grandmother's illness was her fault, that if she'd been better somehow, Beatrice wouldn't have gotten confused. The week before, Nora had admitted she sometimes pretended her stomach still hurt because she was afraid Ellie would send her away once she was completely better. Each revelation broke Ellie's heart anew. Back in Maplewood, things were changing. Frank Cooper had become an unexpected champion for Nora's cause. The renovation of the Morgan house was underway, with volunteers working weekends to replace the roof, fix the plumbing, and clear out years of accumulated clutter. "Not that she'll be moving back there anytime soon," Frank explained to curious customers, "but every child deserves a home waiting for them, even if it's just to visit or to know it's there." At Ellie's cottage, small victories accumulated like the autumn leaves gathering in the garden. Nora gained 3 pounds. She slept through the night twice in a row. She asked for seconds at dinner. Most significantly, she began telling Ellie when she didn't feel well, instead of suffering. In silence or attempting to treat herself. One crisp October morning, as they walked through the garden collecting fallen apples, Nora stopped suddenly. "My stomach feels funny," she said, her face tense with worry. Ellie knelt beside her. "Funny how? Like pain or sickness?" Nora considered this. "Seriously? Not pain exactly, more like gurgling. When did you last eat?" "At breakfast, we had oatmeal." Ellie smiled. "I think you might be hungry, sweetheart. That's your tummy asking for lunch." Nora looked skeptical. "Hungry feels like that? I thought it was supposed to hurt." "No, hunger shouldn't hurt. It should just feel like a gentle reminder." In the kitchen, Ellie prepared grilled cheese sandwiches, while Nora set the table, a task she approached with solemn importance, carefully placing each fork and napkin. "Dr. Parker asked what makes me feel safe," Nora said, climbing onto her chair. "I told her 3 things. Oh, what were they? The bell by my bed, Mr. Buttons, and your hand when we crossed the street." Ellie turned quickly to hide the sudden tears in her eyes. When she'd composed herself, she placed their sandwiches on the table and sat across from Nora. "I have something important to tell you," she said. "Tomorrow, Daniel Thompson is coming for our first official home visit. He needs to see how we're doing together." Nora's hand froze halfway to her sandwich. "Will he take me away if it's not good enough?" "No, sweetheart. He's coming to help make sure I have everything I need to take care of you properly. It's me being evaluated, not you." Nora processed this information slowly. "So I don't have to be perfect?" "No one is perfect, Nora. Not you, not me. We're just doing our best every day." That evening, as Ellie tucked Nora into bed, the little girl asked for an extra hug. "Is it okay if I tell Daniel that I want to stay here with you?" she whispered against Ellie's shoulder. "More than okay," Ellie assured her. "It's exactly what he needs to hear." After Nora fell asleep, Ellie sat at her kitchen table reviewing the foster care paperwork. The temporary arrangement was working well, but there were still hurdles ahead. Court appearances, more home studies, decisions about Beatrice's house and guardianship. Yet for the first time since this journey began, Ellie felt certain they were on the right path. Slowly but surely, Nora was learning what every child deserved to know, that asking for help wasn't weakness, that feelings could be expressed without fear, and that some adults could be trusted to stay. The Maplewood County Courthouse stood imposingly in the town square, its brick facade and white columns a testament to the permanence of law and order. Inside, however, the wood-paneled family court felt surprisingly intimate, almost like a library with its polished tables and hushed voices. Nora sat between Ellie and Daniel, her patent leather shoes barely touching the floor beneath her chair. She wore a navy blue dress, with white collar that Ellie had found at the department store, and her hair was neatly braided. Mr. Buttons waited patiently in Ellie's purse, a secret source of courage they'd agreed upon. "Remember," Daniel whispered, "the judge just wants to make sure everyone is doing what's best for you. Answer honestly, but don't worry if you don't know something." Nora nodded solemnly. In the 6 weeks since coming to live with Ellie, she'd learned about court procedures from books and gentle explanations. Still, the reality of the polished wooden benches and the state seal on the wall made her stomach flutter, not painfully as before, but with nervous anticipation. The courtroom door opened and a small procession entered. Dr. Chen, Principal Wells, Officer Parsons, and to Nora's surprise, Frank Cooper, looking uncomfortable in a tie and sports jacket. "All those people came for me?" Nora whispered. "For both of us," Ellie replied, squeezing her hand. When the bailiff called for all to rise, Nora stood quickly, her back straight as Judge Martha Wilson entered. The judge, a woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes behind no-nonsense glasses, smiled briefly at Nora before taking her seat. "Case number FC 2024-328, regarding the temporary guardianship of Nora Morgan," the clerk announced. Judge Wilson reviewed the papers before her, then looked up. I understand we have several witnesses prepared to speak today, but first, I'd like to hear from Ms. Graham and Nora. Ellie approached the witness stand first, swearing to tell the truth with steady confidence. She answered questions about her teaching background, her home, and the adjustments she'd made to accommodate a child in her life again. And you understand this arrangement is currently temporary? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor, Ellie replied, but I'm hoping today might be a step towards something more permanent. Judge Wilson's expression remained neutral, but her eyes warmed slightly. Next, Dr. Chen testified about Nora's medical condition and recovery. Principal Wells spoke about Nora's gradual return to school. Half days at first, now full-time with special check-ins. Officer Parsons described the condition of Beatrice's house when first discovered, and the community efforts to renovate it. Finally, Frank Cooper approached the stand, nervously adjusting his tie. Mr. Cooper, you've requested to speak today. What is your connection to this case? Frank cleared his throat. I'm just a diner owner, Your Honor. No connection except that I've seen what happens when a town turns its back on a child in need. I've also seen what happens when it doesn't. He gestured toward the volunteers in the gallery. These folks have put in hundreds of hours fixing up the Morgan house, not because anyone asked them to, but because it was right. The judge nodded thoughtfully. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Then came the moment Nora had been both dreading and anticipating. The bailiff led her to the witness stand, adjusting the microphone to her height. Hello, Nora, Judge Wilson said gently. I just have a few questions for you. Are you comfortable answering them? Nora nodded, then remembered what Daniel had told her. Yes, Your Honor. How are you feeling these days? I understand you were quite ill. My belly is much better now, Nora replied. I take the right medicine and Ellie helps me. And I talk to Dr. Parker about my feelings so they don't make my tummy hurt. That's excellent. And how do you like living with Ms. Graham? Nora's face brightened. She reads to me every night, and she never forgets to buy milk, and she taught me to make pancakes. She paused, then added seriously, and when I'm scared at night I can ring a special bell, and she always comes. A soft murmur ran through the courtroom. That sounds wonderful, the judge said. Just one more question. Where would you like to live, Nora? Nora looked at Ellie, then back to the judge. With Ellie, please, but I still want to visit my grandma. She needs me to read the newspaper to her. Judge Wilson smiled fully for the first time. Thank you, Nora. You may step down. As final arguments were presented, Nora leaned against Ellie's arm, suddenly tired from the tension of the day. The wooden benches creaked as people shifted. The wall clock ticked loudly in moments of silence. The smell of lemon polish and old books filled the air. Having reviewed all testimony and documentation, Judge Wilson finally said, I will render my decision on this petition for temporary guardianship after a brief recess. As the judge left the courtroom, Nora looked up at Ellie with worried eyes. What does that mean? Didn't we do good enough? Ellie hugged her close. We did. Wonderfully. The judge just needs time to think carefully about such an important decision. But as they waited, Ellie's own heart raced with hope and fear. In just 6 weeks, this child had become the center of her world. The thought of any other outcome was unimaginable. The 20-minute recess stretched like taffy, each second pulling longer than the last. In the courthouse hallway, Nora sat on a wooden bench beside Ellie, swinging her legs and watching the adults whisper in concerned clusters. Are you hungry? Ellie asked, opening her purse where Mr. Buttons peered out. Nora shook her head, her eyes fixed on the courtroom doors. My belly feels jumpy but not hungry jumpy. Daniel Thompson approached, his usually composed face showing signs of strain. Everything looks positive, he assured them. Judge Wilson is known for being thorough, that's all. Frank Cooper paced nearby, his tie now loosened and slightly askew. When he noticed Nora watching, he winked and produced a small paper bag from his jacket pocket. Peppermint candies, he explained, offering the bag. My Julie always said they calm nervous stomachs. Nora accepted one with a shy, "Thank you," the simple kindness adding another thread to the web of support that had been steadily forming around her. The bailiff appeared, calling everyone back inside. As they filed into the courtroom, Nora noticed something surprising. More townspeople had arrived during the recess. Her first-grade teacher, Mrs. Winters, the librarian who always helped her find books. Even shy Mr. Peterson, who owned the hardware store and had donated supplies for her grandmother's house. When Judge Wilson returned, the room fell silent. She surveyed the expanded audience with raised eyebrows before addressing the court. "Before delivering my ruling, I want to acknowledge something unusual about this case." She removed her glasses, her expression softening. "In 20 years on this bench, I've rarely seen such community involvement in a child welfare matter. The court has received 17 letters from Maplewood, citizens all speaking to Ms. Graham's character and fitness as a guardian." Ellie gasped softly, unaware of this outpouring of support. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "the extensive renovation work on the Morgan family home, undertaken voluntarily by community members, demonstrates exceptional commitment to this child's well-being." Judge Wilson replaced her glasses, her voice returning to its formal tone. "Having considered all testimony and evidence, I hereby grant Eliana Graham temporary guardianship of Nora Morgan for a period of 6 months, with the following provisions. Continued counseling sessions with Dr. Parker, monthly home visits by family services, and regular visitation with Beatrice Morgan as medically appropriate." She looked directly at Nora. Additionally, the court recognizes Nora's attachment to her family home and supports continued community efforts to maintain it in trust until more permanent arrangements can be considered. The judge struck her gavel, and the tension in the room dissolved into smiles and quiet congratulations. Outside the courthouse, autumn sunshine gilded the maple trees lining the square. Nora held tightly to Ellie's hand as well-wishers surrounded them with kind words and promises of continued support. Frank Cooper cleared his throat to gain everyone's attention. "If you'll all come over to the diner, lunch is on the house today." As the crowd moved toward Main Street, Frank lingered behind with Ellie and Nora. "There's something else," he said, uncharacteristically hesitant. "The town's organizing a proper fundraiser for Nora's future. College fund, house repairs, whatever's needed." "That's incredibly generous," Ellie replied, overwhelmed. Frank shook his head. "It's not just generosity, it's atonement." His weathered face grew serious. "When news about Nora first broke, this town didn't respond with its best self. People whispered, they judged. I was among the worst offenders." He looked directly at Nora. "I judged you before I fed you. That's not who I want to be." Something in his honest admission touched Nora deeply. She reached out and patted his hand with the simple compassion children sometimes show in moments where adults struggle for words. At the diner, the impromptu celebration continued with sandwiches, milkshakes, and a cake hastily decorated with "Congratulations" in blue icing. Nora, momentarily overwhelmed by the attention, found a quiet booth where she could observe the gathering. Ellie joined her, sliding a chocolate milkshake across the table. "Happy?" Nora nodded, her eyes tracking the animated conversations around them. Conversations about her future, her house, her well-being. So different from the whispers that had followed her just weeks ago. "Ellie," she said suddenly, "can we visit Grandma today? To tell her the good news?" "Of course we can." As they prepared to leave for Pine Grove, Ellie's phone rang. Daniel Thompson's name flashed on the bow screen. "Ellie, the judge just signed the final order. It's official now." As Ellie ended the call, her eyes filled with tears of relief and joy. 6 months of certainty. 6 months to build a case for something more permanent. 6 months to help Nora heal completely. 6 months that, just weeks ago, had seemed an impossible dream. 3 months after the court hearing, winter had transformed Maplewood into a snow globe version of itself. Holiday lights twinkled in windows, and a dusting of snow covered the town square where a magnificent Christmas tree stood. Inside Ellie's cottage, warmth and cinnamon scents filled the air. In the kitchen, Nora carefully arranged cookies on a plate, her face a study in concentration. She wore a red sweater with a snowflake pattern, a gift from Ellie's daughter Rebecca, who had visited for Thanksgiving and promptly declared herself Nora's unofficial aunt. "Perfect," Ellie said, admiring Nora's handiwork. "Dr. Chen will love these." Today marked Nora's final follow-up appointment, a milestone that felt both triumphant and slightly nerve-wracking. Though her physical symptoms had resolved weeks ago, this visit would officially close the medical chapter of her journey. At the clinic, Dr. Chen welcomed them warmly, accepting the cookies with delight. After examining Nora thoroughly, she sat back with a satisfied smile. "Well, Miss Morgan, I believe we can officially declare you fully recovered." Nora's eyes widened. "Really, no more special medicine? Just regular vitamins now," Dr. Chen confirmed. "Your body has healed beautifully." Ellie squeezed Nora's hand. "We've come a long way from that first day in the hospital, haven't we?" Dr. Chen nodded, her expression growing more serious. "Nora, do you understand now what was happening with your belly back then?" Nora straightened in her chair. Over months of therapy with Dr. Parker, she had gradually pieced together the reality of her condition. "My tummy got sick because I took the wrong medicines," she explained carefully. "I thought something was growing inside me because it felt like movement, but it was just my insides being upset." "That's exactly right," Dr. Chen affirmed. "The moving sensation you felt was intestinal spasms from taking adult medications incorrectly. Your body was trying to tell you something was wrong. Like a warning light," Nora added, using Dr. Parker's analogy. "Precisely. And now that warning light is off because you're taking proper care of your body." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Chen handed Ellie a manila envelope. All of Nora's medical records. They'll be important for the permanent guardianship hearing next month. Outside in the car, snowflakes danced in the winter air. Nora watched them through the window, each unique crystal a reminder of how much had changed since summer. "Ellie," she said suddenly, "I'm not scared about my belly anymore." Ellie glanced at her with a warm smile. "I'm so glad, sweetheart." But Nora hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns on the window glass. "I'm a little scared about the judge next month." "That's understandable, but remember how many people are supporting us now?" Nora nodded. The community's transformation had been remarkable. Frank's fundraiser had exceeded all expectations. The Morgan house stood fully renovated, though Nora had chosen to continue living with Ellie, visiting the family home occasionally to help plant flowers or read to her grandmother on good days. That evening, as snow continued to fall outside, Ellie prepared a special dinner to celebrate Nora's clean bill of health. She'd found a beautiful ceramic bowl at the local craft fair, unlike anything in her cupboards. When Nora came to the table, she noticed the new bowl at her place setting. Picking it up curiously, she turned it over and gasped at the words engraved on the bottom. "This belly only takes love now." Tears filled Ellie's eyes as she knelt beside Nora's chair. "You shouldn't have had to survive like that," she whispered, her voice breaking for the first time since Nora had known her. "But you did. You were so brave, and now you're safe." Nora touched Ellie's wet cheek in wonder. "You're crying." "Happy tears," Ellie assured her, "because you're healthy and you're here." Later, as they shared dessert, Nora placed her hand on her stomach after finishing her ice cream. The sensation was pleasant fullness, nothing like the painful swelling she'd once experienced. "My belly feels happy now," she said with simple certainty. The words hung in the air like a benediction, the final diagnosis not of an illness, but of healing. Not just physical recovery, but the deeper restoration of trust, safety, and belonging. Outside, Maplewood continued its quiet evening rhythm. Lights glowed in windows. Cars moved carefully on snow-dusted streets. And in Frank's diner, a new sign hung beside the menu. "Community Matters." Inside the cozy cottage, as Nora helped clear the dishes, the truth settled gently around them both. Sometimes family isn't about Shared blood, but about who stays when things are hardest. Sometimes healing comes not from medicine alone, but from being seen, believed, and cherished. And sometimes, the most important diagnosis is the simplest one of all. A heart and belly full of love, finally in the right hands.